Hey, how you doing out there in YouTube land? This Stiletto coming at you from the Wild Wild West. Part 3. Part 3 of the knives I think would be good for soldiers that are in my collection. Now this is just my collection. You know, I know there's lots of knives that are great for soldiers. These are just the ones I would have that I would want to take into combat with me if I was going to go into combat. I see Juno's over here trying to jump into the video. She's worried about the people in Ukraine too. That's right. That's right. She just wants to let everybody know she's worried about them and she's praying for them. That's my girl. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's get started. And these are all made in Taiwan. These are all made in USA. Alright, I got them set up here like a chevron, if y'all know what that is. Let's get busy with them. Let's first start off with the old schoolers. These are all K-bars, by the way, and they all have 1095 steel, 1095 CV, chromium vanadium steel. This is the classic K-bar. K-bar World War II fighting knife. Went to all the branches of service. This was a USMC model. My father was in the Marines. He gave me his World War II K-bar when I was like about, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years old, somewhere around there. And I had it for a while and then I lost it. I always felt bad that I lost it, especially later on in life after my father passed away. And I learned about the history of World War II, and you know, I really started paying attention to things because I got older, joined the military. And I always wished I would have never lost this knife. But I used to treat it like dirt. I used to throw it at stuff, and I don't know, I was really abusive with it. You know, the knife was like an old beat up knife when my pops gave it to me. It was like 30 years old. Instead of giving me a nice new shiny knife from, you know, from K-Bar or whatever, he gave me an old one. Old beat up one. He got himself a new knife. I think he got a new buck knife. It was a buck hunter or something like that. It was the one that was sort of like this, but it was a buck knife. And it had stainless steel. The one he gave me, all the finish was pretty much worn off and it had a lot of rust spots on it. And I carried it though. It was my knife. It was my fixed blade. Absolutely loved it. This one comes on a leather sheet. It has leather stacked handles. It's got full tang. Well, they call it like a rat's tail or whatever. It's pinned at the top. This is pinned. And these are all stacked together. It's made the old school way. Classic combat knife. It's a proven combat knife. This is a more modern version of the same knife. Comes in their new sheaths. And this one has a Tanto blade. Now, I don't know what kind of finish that they use. I know it's like a baked on finish. It's not a real sophisticated finish. This one has the leather stacked handles also. This one was a limited production model. And I got them. I don't think they made too many of these. They made a lot of them with the rubberized handles or the Crayax handles. Creighton handles. But with the leather stacked handles, there's only a few of them made. It was a limited quantity. And that's the reason why I got that one. I got basically to collect. But it's an awesome combat knife if need be. I always like to collect things that I can actually use if I have to use them. I don't understand like collecting like stamps. You know, what are you gonna do with a stamp if apocalypse hits? Maybe it'd be better to collect things that if apocalypse does hit, you have lots of it. Lots of things that you need or that you should need. You're already prepped. All right. This one's the one with the Japanese Tanto. I love this one. This one's cool. The grip on this one, it's got the Creighton grip. It feels really good. This one's really grippy. Slicey blade, 1095 blade. This is one of the new models of the combat knife. It's a Japanese style Tanto, not the American style Tanto. It's a Japanese style Tanto. So that one's a Tanto also. It's a Japanese style Tanto. This one's American style Tanto. And this one's the classic style the way they were made. Actually, this one should be down here at the bottom. This one has the 3 snaps on it. I think it's good for paratroopers because it has more than 2 retentions for the knife. But this one is the EK-44, the US EK model, EK-44 or EK4, the K-bar version of it. It's an awesome collector, but it was a real combat knife. And it's made like the real combat knife. 1095 steel. Actually, the steel's better than the original steel it had. Because this is 1095 CV. Chromium vanadium. It's a little bit tougher and more rust resistant. This is one I would probably take with me if I was going into combat. It's a dagger. From any angle that you hit somebody with this thing, you're going to cut them. It's a badass blade, too. It's what General Patton used to carry. You know, Patton, the one they made the movie about. That's what he used to carry. The EK Model 44. EK-44. Alright. Now these are my American ones. These are my American ones. These two were actually in World War II. These two were actually in World War II and in every theater after that. These are just modern versions of the old, of really this one. These are just modern versions of this one. This one, you know, this would be another one I would really I would really consider carrying into combat too. Why? Because I love the blade. The blade's not as heavy duty though, but it's still a good thickness though. It still looks like about 4mm maybe. But it'd be an awesome piercing knife, and the grip on it. This one has the best grip out of all these knives. This one has the best grip. This grip feels like one of these knives, to actually tell you the truth, because it's got the crate. I love I love the Kraton, the Cray-X or Kraton, the rubberized or whatever you want to call it handle. It feels, I mean, because it feels like it's trying to grip your hand while you're gripping it. I mean, it's like, it's a really good feeling, you know. In a fighting knife, you want to have a good grip. That's my theory. You don't want to have something that has a slippery grip. You want something that helps you hold on to the knife in extreme circumstances. All right. Well, let's start right here. What we got? This is cold steel. All these knives are cold steel. All these knives are K-bars. And this one right here, so let me wipe it off. Is my Warcraft. 3V. All these knives are 3V. All those were 1095. $3V Warcraft. I forgot I stored these knives in Greece. Now these are the modern knives that I think I want to be my first choices. Why? Because it's just all modern materials and modern style of knife. Let's see. Five millimeter thick. 3V carbon steel. Full tang construction. G10 handle scales that are removable. Excellent knife. Now this one, this one's like a knife that would be good for camp duty. You know, it's got a flat ground Tanto blade. I think it'd be good for camp purposes. Like setting up camp. It'd be a good combat knife, but it's kind of not really balanced for a fighter. It's more of a duty knife. Of a utility knife. That's the way I think of it. I don't think of it as like a balanced fighter. That's an awesome knife. And it's, you know, it's designed for soldiers. That was a theory behind it. So it belongs out here. This is cold steels. All right, next up. Now, which side? This is the Magnum Tanto series. And let me see, that's the longest one. So that's the IX, the 9-inch. Yep, this one's stored in Greece too. Should have checked these first. I didn't think to check them first. I'm sorry about that, people. Set them up for long-term storage because these aren't knives I carry or anything like that. They're more than a collector for me though. These are my apocalypse knives. That's the best way I could put it. These are my apocalypse knives. Now this one I do consider a real fighter. This is awesome. I don't want to mess with it too much because it's got grease on it. It feels kind of slippery. Let me see if I can get some of the grease off it. Oh yeah. It's been a while since I held this one. Absolutely love these cold steel Tantos. 3V Tantos. I think it was called the Nightshade series. Or was it Nighthawk, Nightshade, Night something. I forget what it was. Absolutely beautiful knives. I know I've heard a lot of people complain about these sheaths, but there's a trick to them. Don't rub your blade against the edge. I mean, against the sheath. When you take it out, you spread these things a little bit, and you bring your blade. Let the blade ride against the unsharpened side. And same thing when you put it away. Let it ride on the unsharpened side like that. The blade stays about 1/8 of an inch away from the plastic. or the Cray-X. Because the Cray-X is a glass-filled nylon. It will dull your blade if you ride the blade on it. And so that's something that you don't want to do with the Cray-X sheath. Now make sure that you ride the blade against the unsharpened side of the knife, against the sheath. When you're putting it in or drawing it out. Now this one is a 7.5 inch one. I think this one's just called the Magnum Tanto. Is that right? The Magnum Tanto? Or is it Magnum Tanto 2? Maybe that's what it is. Magnum Tanto 2. Because I think you have the IX, the Magnum Tanto 2, and this is the Master Tanto. This one has a 7.5 inch blade. Same thickness, they're all the same thickness, 5 millimeters. 3V steel. Flat ground, saber ground, Tanto blade. This is a combat knife. In the Marines, they say that the best size for a fighting fixed blade is from 6 to 9 inches. And the ones that they issued in World War II were 7 inches or 7.5 inches, something like that. 7 or 7.5 inches. The original K-bars. I think this is a good size right here. Because it's not too hard to carry and it's easy to maneuver in your hand. I have also the the Samé collection, and I have that one all the way up to the 12-inch blade. The XII. Let's see if I have to clean this one off too, huh? Yep. All right. This is one of my favorite sizes right here, the 6-inch one. The Master Tanto size. I really like this size. To me, this is a really good size to carry. This one in the 5-inch, like the Kobun, I think that's another great size too. Six-inch blade. And on these, I always put lube on the pocket clips too. I mean, not pocket clips, but on the snaps, because I've had those fall apart before on me when they got rusted together or they sat too long. These are ones that stay out. These stay out in my about next to my bed all the time. This is my Recon, Samé Recon Tanto. 5 millimeter thick, VG10 Recon 1, or not? It's not Recon 1. It's Recon with the Cray-X handles. That's my home defense knife. And see, I have set up to carry. A boot knife, or inside the pocket knife, or inside the waistband knife. It's my Kobun. S.O.G. These are very inexpensive. You get them for like 20, 30 bucks. 30, 40 bucks, depending on where you buy it at. Some places they want to charge you a lot for them. Some places you get them really cheap. I have a bunch of these. I have like 4 of them. One of them's even, a couple of them are even serrated. But I've always carried the Kobun because it's a easy knife. You can put this in your pocket. You can put this in your pocket. You can put it inside your boot. There's all sorts of different ways you can carry it. It's real light. And it's a small fixed blade, which actually, it's got a 5-inch blade, which actually makes it big if it had been a folder, right? It's super lightweight, easy to carry. Highly recommend them. As a self-defense folder. It's an Oz-8 blade, so it's not like a knife that I would recommend for doing a lot of cutting chores. But it will cut flesh. Let me shut up. Okay. Oz-8 does a good job at being for self-defense still. It does a good job of that. You don't need super duper steel to be able to cut flesh. I'm being blunt. I'm just putting it out there. You don't need a super duper steel to do that. I'm just being honest. But if you have to do a lot of cutting chores with your knife and stuff like that, then you do want good steel because you want something that's going to hold a good edge and you won't have to resharpen it all the time. That I totally get. If you're doing a lot of cutting chores and like utility work or whatever with your knife and you don't want to have to resharpen it all the time, totally get it. That's the reason why you don't want Oz-8. Because I have used Oz-8 on knives like that, like my American Lawman, and it was a pain in the butt to have to resharpen it all the time. Every week I was resharpening a knife. Every week, because the edge would only last for like a week. And I wasn't even doing like major cutting stuff. Oz-8 does go dull fast, but for self-defense purposes, it does its job. Because one thing good about Oz-8 is it's a real tough steel. Most of those things that most of the strength tests that Andrew Demko did for cold steel were with knives that had Oz-8 steel, stainless steel blades. Because most of them were like the original series of the tests or whatever. That's when he did most of the tests when they didn't have the higher end steels. All that they had was Oz-8 for most of their knives. And that's what most of those tests were done with knives with Oz-8 steel. Oz-8 steel is super tough. It just doesn't hold the edge very well, but it is tough. So it's good for a combat knife, combat stainless steel. But anyway, these are my favorites. Out of the ones that I have, the ones that I personally own. Now I own other knives that could probably fall in the same group of knives, because I have a Camellias M4 dagger, combat dagger, and I have a what do you call it? I forget the name of the steel, but so I have a Recon. I have like one of the original Recons and the original kind of carbon steel that they had. I think it was Carbon V. I think it was called Carbon V or something like that. But I have a black Recon Carbon V fixed blade, but I like the 3V better. I like these with the DLC coatings, and these are the ones I would take with me if I was going into combat, because the Carbon V one has a crappy kind of coating. Is that a good way to put it? It's got like a baked on coating that's like an old-fashioned kind of coating that wasn't that good. The steel is really good. The knife is really good. I just don't care for the coating. And with the Camellias, it's got like a real narrow, thin blade. I can't picture that being really useful for a whole lot of stuff if I was in the field, except for stabbing stuff. Even like this blade, the EK44. Sure, it's primarily made to be a stabbing instrument. This is meant to be a weapon. It's not meant to be like a utility tool. These are weapons. These are weapons. These are meant to fight other people with. That's what these were made for. These weren't made to be, and I know people don't like to hear that kind of stuff, but that's what this video is for. This video is for soldiers. For soldiers that may have to go into combat and may have to actually use things that, to save their lives with. Not only as utility tools. And that's why I would recommend this. This is a proven weapon for that. Like I said, General Patton carried this. He carried the exact same knife as this. It actually was the original one. This is not the original model. But he carried the original model of it. And this one right here, this one's got a lot of combat history all throughout last century. Vietnam, all the way back to World War II, Iraq. It's been everywhere. That's why I highly recommend that. That's what my father carried during World War II in the Pacific. And these are the new versions of that. And true, you know, I don't carry these knives. I don't really do anything with them. I just collect them. But I do know the history of them. It's not like I'm naive to what they're all about. I know what they were built for. I know what they were made for. These were made to fight other people with. They're combat knives. That was their purpose. They weren't meant to be wood crafting knives. They weren't meant to be hunting knives. They're meant to be combat knives. These are combat knives. Designed after the original solid Japanese tantos. It's beautiful. And this one feels really good in hand. It feels really good in hand. And this one right here is the only one that doesn't really feel like a combat knife to me. It feels a lot like more like a wood crafting knife or a camp knife or something like that. But this grip does really feel good in your hand. And these, oh man, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. Magnum Tantos. This is where it's at. I love these. Modern combat knives. Beautiful. 3V carbon steel. The grip on these. If you've never held one of these before, you need to get one to hold. If you can't get one of these, get a Sam May version. Get a Sam May version. They're still making the Sam Mays, I think. I think they might be still making the 3Vs, but they don't make them with DLC coating no more, I don't think. I think that's what they don't do. I think they still make these, but they're not DLC coated. Personally, I like carbon steel being coated. I only like leaving carbon steel raw because it rusts or stains, or it needs a lot of maintenance and attention to keep from rusting or staining. I like having coatings on knives that are carbon steel. And then for a combat knife, you want a coating on it because you want to, kick down the glare potential. All right, people. So those are the ones I would recommend out of my collection. I like to see other people that are into knife collecting or what have you. I would like to challenge them to show people what they would recommend for a soldier. I don't know what's going on in today's world. I just know it looks crazy to me right now. And it's got me thinking about, what if? And maybe it's time to get ready for things or whatever. I don't know. Because I don't know what's going to happen. One thing I do know though is I don't like letting bullies get away with stuff. And I don't like being afraid of bullies. I never have. Whenever I had a bully come in my life, I always confronted them. They might have got away with stuff for a minute, but then eventually I got tired of their mess and I confronted them. And that's the way I feel like we need to do with Putin. You can't let Putin just keep getting away with shit. So I don't know what needs to happen. So I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking about it. Hope everybody's doing good out there. And God bless all the Ukrainians, and God please keep them safe. Amen. Peace. Stiletto.